The question here is to explain again the 0, 1, 2, 3. So basically what the 0, 1, 2, 3 is I'm just numbering my months. In other words, if the transaction happened in January, I will say January is month 0. Meaning 1 month following, 1 month after January is February. 2 months after January is March. If February is the month of the transaction, February is 0. March would be 1 month following. April would be 2 months following. So now, if I go look at this, they give me 20% in the month. Can you see it's the month of the transaction, so I coded 0. Okay? 60% 1 month later, 18% 2 months later. So that's why I do the 012. So now when I go look, let's say they ask me to budget for April. Ne? So if I look at April and they give me credit sales for January, ne? Then I know January is month 0, February month 1, March 2 months following, April is 3 months following January. Can you see 3 months following, we write off bad debt. Bad debt doesn't go to the cash budget. So for January credit sales, I will receive nothing in April. If I go look at February, now February is 0 because it's the month of the transaction. March would be 1 month following. April would be 2 months following. 2 months following is 18%. So I'm going to take February's credit sales times 18%, and that's what I'll receive in April. Now I go to March. So now March is going to be 0 because it's the month of the transaction. April would be the month following. My code for 1, 60%. So I'm going to take March times 60%. And that's what I receive in April. You're starting to get it. So let's look at April. So now April is 0. Can you see? The moment I have both of them in line there, I know this is now ground 0. So now if I go look at month 0, it's 20%, 5% discount. So I'm going to take April, I will times it with 20%, then I will times it with what I'm going to receive. And they say we give them 5% discount. Ne? Is it 5? Yes. Meaning I am only going to receive 95. So, can you also see if they gave me what I'm going to receive in April? If I work the inverse, I can get to the credit sales for April. Okay, because most of the times what they're going to do is they will give you, like when you do, so obviously in tomorrow's test, it will be printed the months. You don't have to work out those months. It will be printed. They'll give you some of the credit sales, but they'll leave out some. Okay? Now you need to know, oh, how do I get the credit sales? Oh, I get the credit sales, first of all, by going to read my info. So in this case, they gave it to me. Another way they can give it to me is they give me the total sales. If they give me the total sales, I know that consists credit and cash. And they tell me that credit sales is 70% of the total sales. Then it's just a normal percentage I calculate. Or they can say the cash sales is 30%. So what do you know immediately? The total is 100, meaning the credit is 70. Okay, that's a way to do it. Another way to do it is if they, for instance, say here, they don't give you April, but they give you this amount. In other words, the amount that you're supposed to receive in April. Okay, so what am I going to do? I will then work it backwards. I will say 5415 times, I know this is 95% because we gave discount, and I know it's 20% of the debtors. And then I work it back. Ooh, what am I doing? Then I work it back to get the credit sales. Does that answer your question, my angel?
Yes, but then remember I was referring to the months, and how do you know that we have to start this year in January?
Okay, so if she's asking that we look at the referral of the months. So can you see there the word? It says in the month. So if it's in the month, it means we start the month of the credit sale. So if the credit sale is April, we receive money in April already. That's why I make it 0. If the wording was in the month following the sale or after 30 days, then my thing wouldn't start with 0. It will start with 1. Does that make sense? Okay, anybody with another question? So I'm repeating that. If they say it's in the month of the sale or within 30 days, your coding starts with 0. But if they say, the first one there, they say in the month following the sale or 30 days after the sale or 1 month after the sale, then I don't start with a 0. Then I start with 1, 2, 3, 4. In other words, my schedule then only starts 30 days after. It doesn't start in the same month. Okay, be careful for that. They like asking that. Because you're so used to working a certain pattern that you just immediately go right 0, 1, 2, 3. But it's very important that you make sure if it's in the month or after the month. Because in the month, you start with 0. After the month, you start with 1. So if I look, you're asking about this operating expense. So they say this operating expense is paid, where am I? In cash 1 month after the expense. So it all makes sense then. If I do, can I write here on your paper? Yes. Okay, so if I do the cash budget, it means I don't know what we did in December. So I can't budget for January. I don't have the info. But in February, I'm going to pay 6,600. Can you see? March, I'm going to pay 7. April, I'm going to pay 7,600. May, I'm going to pay, and they don't give me, it's a question mark. But what do they say? It is expected that it would increase 5% per month over the budget period. In other words, from April on. So 7,600 times 105%. Is it 5%? Yeah. The problem with this is we're thinking, oh, we already had to say 7,600 plus 5% for April. But that's not it. Remember, this is actual. It happened. And that which happened, I pay next month. So it's not going to still increase. The increase is already included there. But remember, the increase actually, they say it only starts over the budgeted period. So the increase actually only starts in April. So whatever happens in April is 5% more than what happened in March. But what happened in March? The 7,600. Even though I only paid it in April. But while I paid it in April I'm still busy incurring expenses. I'm phoning, I'm doing advertising, anything that can be an operating expense. Are you shocked? Yes. Okay. Okay, so she's asking about the cash and the trading stock. Remember, I'm asking you to do a cash budget. So in your mind's eye, just think, is this something I can go to the bank to put inside my bank account? Or is this something that I can go to the bank to and withdraw from my bank account? So if you look there, is cash something I can do in the bank? If I go to ABSA, they're not going to laugh at me if I draw 300. No. So then it's cash, goes to the cash budget. If I go to ABSA and I want to draw stock, are they going to laugh at me?
Yes.
Yes, because it's not within their capacity to give me physical products. The only physical thing they can give me is money. So that is why that will not form part of the cash budget, because it doesn't influence my cash. Okay. So let me just be clear on this. I have never seen them ask the T account for direct labor cost. 9 out of 10 times they ask you to calculate it. Okay? But if they do ask you, remember your labor, your salary and wages has got an amount here. Okay? A balance. And that balance is going to close off to the different sections. So the first section it's going to go to is direct labor, which is the factory workers. The second place it will go to is factory overheads, which would be the foreman and the cleaner, and if there's a mechanic. Right. The third one it will go to is your admin, your secretary and your bookkeeper. The fourth one it will go to is your sales and distribution, your drivers, your marketing agents, all of that. The ones we are interested in, if I'm asking you the income statement, I would use admin, sales and distribution. But if I do the normal manufacturing T's, in other words, if I do the work in process, I'll need the direct labor. If I ask you to do the factory overheads, you're going to need the salary and wage. So those are the two that's part of the manufacturing costs in the end. Okay, so now if I go to direct labor, okay, I brought that amount from salary and wage, okay, and I'm going to close it to work in process. Okay, I think it's more important though that you understand how to calculate direct labor. So they can give you something like they say, oh, the salary and wages is 7 billion rand and 50% goes to direct labor. Then it's just a normal percentage. But if they don't give it like this, they can also give it as a big calculation. So then you need to remember, you need to do the norm time and the overtime. You need to add both of them and the contributions. All of that gives you the direct labor cost. Okay? So norm time is 8 hours a week, 5 days a week, meaning 40 hours a week. That's norm time. Anything you work more than 40 hours, it's overtime. And usually they pay you more for overtime, right? So that's why you do not want your workers to work overtime if not need be, right? Because it's more expensive. So if they say it's 1 rand per hour, and they say overtime is time and a half, ne? If they say time and a half, what's going to happen? It's 1 times a half. So it gives me 1 rand 50. Can you see? It's literally what I would get for norm time plus half of what I get for norm time. That's time and a half. You just times it. Okay, did I answer your question? Okay. So let's quickly look at factory overheads. So what is factory overheads? It's expenses. That's what it is. So number one, you can't put any assets in here. You will not put equipment there. But you can put depreciation on equipment there. You see, it's an expense. But it's only the expense that is applicable on the factory, on the making of the product. Okay, so things that will go into factory overheads, as a rule, is always indirect material, which is your consumable stores. Which is, if you do it, you'll have an opening, a closing, what you buy, and then your expense. Okay? The opening and closing, you'll find with that column with balances. And I'm saying again to you, you guys, be awake, because they can give you your balances as 2023, 2024, meaning this is my opening, this is my closing. But they can also give it to you 2024, 2023, meaning this is my closing, this is my opening. Do not be catched with this, because it's going to cost you for every T that you have to do 2 marks. Don't do that. First thing you do is you go look at the dates. You say to yourself, this is the opening, this is the closing. Okay. Now, if I do this, why do I only say expense there? Because if they say, let's say, there where they give balances, and they say most usually give balances for direct material, work in process, finished goods, indirect material, consumable stores. If they tell you this is indirect material for the factory, then they must tell you it's only the factory. Okay? Then you do opening less closing plus what you buy. If you return stuff, you also subtract that. This is a normal income statement transaction. But if they tell you, oh, 50% has to be allocated to the factory, you first get that expense and then you allocate. Okay. So next thing that's always there is your indirect labor. So indirect labor, again, factory foreman, cleaner, machinist. People working inside the factory, but not part of the process. Okay? And then they'll have your normal thing. Water and electricity, rent, depreciation, maintenance, telephone. Anything can go in there. That's an expense. Except things, bad debts can't go there. Advertising can't go there. Why? They've got nothing to do with inside the factory. Can the factory run if we don't have advertising? Yes, of course it can. It's just we're going to have a problem selling the product. Can the factory run if we don't have bad debts? Of course we can. Can you see, they are not necessary for the factory to run. And they go with sales and admin. Any one of those two. Okay, now, can you see water and electricity and rent, those two, will always, and like rates, property tax, they will always be ratioed. Because I pay one water and electricity account, but admin also use water. Ne? So now you get 2 things that you need to do. First thing is you need to adjust. Second thing, you need to ratio. And remember what I said, A before R. Okay? So if I say to you, your water and electricity is 1,000 rand. We have an accrued expense of 200 and we ratio it 6 to 2 to 2. Now you're going to say 1,000 plus 200 gives me 1,200. Now I ratio it. Okay? You guys with me? You never ratio just a part of the calculation. You do the whole calculation first, and then you ratio. Same with percentage. Then you percentage.
But what if they make an error on the ratio?
Okay, if they make an error on the ratio, you need to work it back. So let's say this is how we ratioed, but it's the wrong ratio. It should have been 5 to 3 to 2. Ne? Then what do? You take the amount, you're going to reverse it. Remember, if we worked it out, it was 6 out of 10. So now I'm going to say 10 over 6. And then I'm going to say, okay, let's ratio it the way it should, 5 over 10. And now you can see the 10s cancelled. So if you just say times 5 over 6, it's also fine. So it will depend on the question. You're going to read the question. Most of the times when there was a mistake on the ratio, they won't give you an adjustment. They'll just give you the mistake and you need to fix it. Another way they can do it is they can tell you, oh, the water and electricity, that was for admin. You see? Now you have to go say, oh, 1,000, this admin is 2,